Hello, everybody. This is Based with Des and Hiram, and we have our special guest over here. He may look familiar, Zane Thomas from my other
One
show, Off the Cuff, with
Des
Des
insane.
and Zane.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I just saw you earlier.
You did. We're knocking out 2 podcasts today.
Yep. We're coming on a little bit late today, but we're here. Today we'll be talking about the war on drugs, drug addiction, everything drug related. So if you like
Yes.
drugs or you don't like drugs, you've come to the right spot.
If you're indifferent about drugs, you are in the right place.
Hiram, what? So
Yeah,
you have a background in you've studied the war on drugs and like policy regarding the topic, right?
yes. I've dedicated a lot of my work and life to understanding some of the dynamics of, really, really huge operations like the war on drugs that have impacted communities, I think, all over the world. It's caused so much trouble, so much money. It is ridiculous, quite frankly. And I dedicated my time to understanding why, this is still in place and why we haven't moved away from it despite the evidence, etc. So, um, it's a very complicated topic, and I'm just happy that we get to talk about it because it's often misunderstood.
Yeah. So
Uh,
so it's my understanding uh the war on drugs has or drugs have won the war after 50 years. They get started in the war on drugs started in 1971, and almost exactly 50 years later, they declared that drugs have won.
Drugs declared victory.
Mhm. Did you hear that, Hiram? Did you know
yeah,
about that?
no, I mean that would be accurate. Like drugs did win the war, unfortunately, and that's because what happens with something like drugs, and when you treat it like a crime, is that it only gets worse because it's not a crime. It's like we're trying to get rid of drugs and like by putting laws and doing legal stuff and putting people in jail when it's like something like a disease where we should be treating it. Think about like somewhere like diabetes or something, you know what I mean? It's a lot closer to that than it is to anything else. So it's really sad that we don't treat it, and so when you don't treat a disease, it just gets worse, and that's what's happening. Drugs have won. The disease is taken over. It's become a pandemic or even just endemic. I mean, it's endemic now. It's really just a common disease that a lot of people suffer from.
Yeah, and Zane has some knowledge on this topic as well. Um,
Yeah.
but
I'm really
but
go ahead.
firsthand.
Firsthand, yeah. Somebody had to go try out these drugs that they were fighting, and boy, do I have a lot to report back. Don't do them. First off, uh,
It was all for scientific purposes, so
yeah,
that you could report back to me because
exactly.
I, went to school for biology. We were doing a research project, so
Yep,
thank you
yep.
very much for your service.
Absolutely, yeah. I smoked meth, and I was like, you know what, this is going to be useful later, but like right now, not so much. But yeah, I'm actually 11 years sober from crystal methamphetamines and prescription pills, and
Congrats.
then thank you,
How
and
many years
then
was that? You said 11 years?
yeah, 11 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then yeah, I'm actually on 11/11 of 2020. I put
Leonardo
alcohol.
DiCaprio's birthday?
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah, I talked about that. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's the reason I quit was because of for my boy Leo. Uh, but yeah, so I'm actually coming up on 2 years of sobriety from alcohol. So yeah, I definitely have had a lot of experiences with either just the disease of addiction or the way that police treat addiction. It's just
Hmm.
it's not really for the benefit of bettering the person. It's for like holding them accountable in some aspects for being sick, I guess. I don't know what their plan is, but yeah, I don't know. I've just definitely I've seen how it's affected my life. I've seen how it's affected lives of my friends, and yeah, I'm glad that drugs won. Woo!
Uh,
They're
I
still
mean,
going
yeah.
strong.
So one thing about, one thing I've learned about the whole prison industrial complex is that, we've found a way to make prisons for profit, and in Texas, there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you make prisons for profit is that you encourage, a certain industry to go and lobby and tell Congress people, hey, you know what, you should pass laws, that are tighter so that you get more people in jail because we're making money from putting people in jail. And you know what, you want to put away bad people, right? You want to put people in jail for doing drugs and stuff. And so, like, you get this creation of a massive, policy, like climate of anti-drugs. There's like anti-drug this, anti-drug that, and then there's a racial aspect to it, and a very intentional one, where not only are we anti-drugs, but we're also anti-black and brown people or people of color, because a lot of these drugs that we make illegal, sometimes we make them illegal unfairly, and that happened with cocaine. Crack cocaine was like 100 times more likely to put you in jail for like the sentences were 100 times more like severe than it was for like cocaine, like powder cocaine. The reason for that was because it was people of color who couldn't afford more expensive cocaine that were actually addicted to crack cocaine, and the people that made these laws, they knew that they were just going to get more black and brown people in jail, which meant that they were going to make money because they had contracts through these for-profit prisons. And so it's just getting worse, and
Yeah, well,
it's actually
Yeah,
racial.
and it's basically like a pretty much form of slavery, too, like modern day
Yeah,
slavery.
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, well, like cocaine's definitely like a rich white people drug. So it's like, all they have to do is just say like, oh, the version that black people are using is worse because it's manufactured or they put more effort into it or whatever. And, it's real easy to just kind of slap us, yeah, slap us with it.
Yeah.
yeah, no, and something that's even worse that I really think about when it comes to this war on drugs is that we're trying to fight drugs by putting people in jail because these jails make money from having people in jail, right? Because the government signs these contracts with these jails so that they can hold the surplus of people. And look, let me tell you, the majority of people in jail are in jail for drug crimes, like drug possession crimes. Um, and its research has shown that jail doesn't help people rehabilitate. Rehabilitation helps people rehabilitate.
Yeah,
You know, not
absolutely.
not sending people, not punishing people, and then
Well, they're surrounding people with the same people that got them there. So it's like you can't really expect that problem to get better if you're surrounding them with more of the thing that got them there.
exactly. And look, just going to jail makes it more likely that you're going to go back to jail because going to jail makes your life more difficult, and it sets you back, and like it turns out to be debilitating, and it just happens to be that when people are in a debilitating position, they're less likely to be able to overcome difficult obstacles they're facing. And like, everybody's prone to addiction when they're put under stress, and that's obvious because you look at suicide rates and drug use rates in different careers, and they spike as stress in the field rises, right? Like, you see that the more stressed people are, no matter how much money they make, but no matter how wealthy or important they are, the more stress they're facing, the harder their career is, the higher the rates of drug use. And so, like, yeah, it's an equal, it hits everybody the same.
Yeah, and
But people
it's
that are
And speaking of, jail ruining your whole life, that's absolutely true because if you're in jail for a while, you get out, nobody's going to want to hire you. You may have missed out on some schooling, so then you have to, like, go back and retrace your steps and, like, um, just getting back into society is really difficult. And then like people are slapped with like felony charges for drugs, so then nobody will hire them, and then a lot of
Yeah.
people end up resorting back to selling drugs because
Well,
they
I
can't
mean,
get a good job
like I
to
have
pay
a
for their fines for getting arrested. They have to like get a good job, and they can't get a good job. It's just, and then it
fines
puts you
for
back in this cycle.
yeah. Well, I mean, like I have to every time I fill out like an application, I have to put on there. Oh, do you have any like felony convictions and stuff like that? And it's like, yep. I have to say, oh, possession of methamphetamine, or will explain at interview, because yeah, it doesn't look good on paper, and it complicates like an already complicated process. Like getting a job isn't an easy thing to do, but getting a job when you have a black mark on your record is infinitely harder.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I really think that like it's really important to focus on this uh as a like as a real issue in the way that we view things legally, because I was listening to this podcast once. It's funny, I'm talking about another podcast and I don't remember the name. I'm so sorry. This was
Don't
like when I
don't
was
don't shout the name out. No, I'm kidding.
when I
No,
was
you can
like
if you
way
want.
young. I was like in high school, I believe, but it really stuck with me. And it was talking about how there are sometimes certain fields where people have like really controversial, or not controversial, but they have a past that some people would say directly conflicts with their ability to work in that field in the future. Like think
Yeah.
about something like nurses having a drug addiction background, right? Nurses have a lot access to a lot of drugs in hospitals, and so that happens to be one of those convictions that people would be like, well, that's kind of, I don't know. So anyway, so then the question is, can people change, and when do people achieve change, and how do we know people have changed for the better? Um, and what studies have shown is that like people really change when we stop defining them, or not that defining them with who they used to be creates a change, but like that our perception sometimes is wrong, and that people do change, but we don't allow ourselves to see that because we get so preoccupied, with that blacklisting that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just ends up being a matter of perception because people do change, and legally, like, there's a bias against people who have a past, and it's wrong. It's really evident. I wish I could pull up more data, or I wish I could remember what the methodology of the study was, but there's been a lot of people that have investigated this, and they find that like it's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that firsthand because I was kind of a bad kid, and I partied a lot, and I got in trouble for drinking underage quite a few times, not just by my parents, but from 12. uh, and my some people from my family and, like, people who I grew up with just saw me as this bad kid even up until like my early 30s, and I had to um and it was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy too, like I'm like, oh, I'm bad, I'm a bad kid. So I took myself out of that situation. And people who told me that people don't really change, like, you know I'm not going to say who said that to me, but somebody close to me and my family said that to me, like, people don't really change at the core. And that's not true at all. Like, I've changed so much since I was a kid. Like, people do change. um
Yeah. Well, I
so,
think
but I do see the conflict with somebody who's been off drugs for 5 years becoming a nurse. Like, that's pretty fresh. So I don't know. That'd be a tough decision for me because I
well,
I know that people change, but at the same time, like, you do have
yeah.
to. Sorry
I
about
so
that.
I guess, like my problem with that would be like, because I'm I'm like signed up to start taking like psychology and stuff like that, and it's just like how much distance do I have to put between me and my mistakes before you will allow me to be seen as anything other than that mistake? Is it 10 years? Is 10 years where it's like, okay, well, you've been off of it long enough? Or is it like, can somebody make a mistake and try to redirect and correct their life? And, like, are you going to allow them that space? Because I feel like a lot of times it's easier to just say it's too much of a risk. So we'll just not have them around than it is to be like, to give them a chance, like there's people don't want to give people chances because they've been burned. And I understand that people get burned, but like at the same time, like I'm not the one who burned you, they burned you, and I'm getting burned because that person sucks.
Yeah, but I also think that there's a spectrum too of like, if somebody did something, like hurt children, I would never want them around my kids, even if it was like
Sure,
20 years later. Or if
sure,
somebody like stalked and murdered somebody, I would not want to be their friend ever,
sure.
because I think that's something that is at the core of who you are that can't be changed. But when it comes to addiction, if you've been sober for 10 years, like I'm not going to look at you as an addict.
Yeah.
Yeah, and addiction has a very like biochemical like process to it. It is very deep in our like biology, and that's why I think it's much more different than like making the choice to murder somebody. That's more of a conscious decision, of your morality. And if you disagree with somebody morally, then you might want to not associate yourself with them. But you know if you see that somebody is going through something that's been proven to be like more results of environment and biological processes. There's no reason why we should be treating it like at a hospital or somewhere where we're actually implementing like intelligent biological solutions to it, like we treat a lot of mental illnesses, right? Like there's a lot of ways to treat mental illnesses, and it's always a combination of things that works, right, for a lot of different people, and we kind of have to treat it that way, but we just throw people in jail for drug stuff. And there's been a movement to focus on mental health, but you know against that movement is a $1 billion war on drugs, where drugs are just constantly fed into the country, and they're fed into the country the way they are because we just throw people in jail, and that makes a black profitable market for it. And then you get the creation of very, very sophisticated, criminally organized, groups of people that wreak havoc in Latin American countries. Latin America could be a much happier country without the imposition of American demand for drugs and the war on drugs, which facilitates the creation of these criminal organizations. It's all related. The more
Which are
money
the
the United
cartels,
States spends,
right?
yeah, the more money the United States spends against drugs, the more money the cartels make, which is ridiculous. And there's no denying it. It's
No,
not
I mean,
working.
that's the problem is that like most things, like if you tell people not to do them, they will just find a way to do them. And that's where like even the war on drugs kind of just like, yeah, you made it illegal, but that just means I have to be sneakier, and it's like it's not remedying the situation, it's just creating one more hurdle, and that hurdle just becomes an opportunity for somebody else where they're just like, oh well, I mean, since it was so hard for me to get this, now I'm going to charge you this much for this. And well, it's they just pass it on to the consumers. It just, yeah, I don't.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like that creates like like oppression, like because somebody's gonna lose in that transaction. Like there's gonna be somebody in that transaction that's gonna be oppressed. And you know what? Traditionally and always, history has shown that it's been racial, that it's been, one race oppressing another race for its own benefit. Like that kind of system kind of demands that you oppress somebody. And a lot of people are going to feel like that's a very uh communist thing to say, but I don't think it is. I think it's a very socialist thing to say, because we have to recognize that there are certain industries that economically are just not going to work if we just put money in trying to destroy them, like the war on drugs. It's like it makes no sense economically. It makes better sense if we invest, and we invest in a societal way towards the betterment of everybody.
Yeah, and you were saying that you think that that is by mental health.
I think
You're
that's
kind of
mental health. I think that's rehabilitation. I think that's expunging drug records. I think that's, not like decriminalizing drugs. And a lot of actual smaller local cities have done it right. But like as a whole, the United States still continues to be very tight on these drug regulations, and there's still a whole department like the DEA have much other bigger organizations, focusing a lot of their money and effort on drugs. So I've seen it decriminalized, but not in the way that would really make a significant difference.
Well, it's
But
like,
yeah, I think decriminalization would be one step.
well,
yeah, like did they,
Portland
yeah,
decriminalized a lot of drugs like psilocybins, I think cocaine too, right? And
yeah, sure they
and weed's legal
legalized
here.
like yeah, I'm pretty sure they decriminalized, like they didn't legalize it, but they decriminalized it, so it's like a traffic ticket now or whatever. That it's
Yeah.
like it's not the end of your life if you're a struggling addict, and that's what I feel like is the biggest problem, is that like if you're in addiction, then you're probably not already doing well. You know what I mean? So it's like to punish you for not doing well and putting you in a situation where you're now worse off where when you already weren't doing well, it's not fixing anything. It's just perpetuating a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and if they, if every single person was arrested and put put in jail for having drugs on them, our the jails would be full, and it's just, yeah, and they are. It just it doesn't make any sense to me.
And it's a perpetual cycle, because look, what happens is you put somebody in jail for drug use, right? And then they're now not present in the life of their family. They're not present in the life of their significant other and any children that they have. And those children, just because your parents have gone to jail, if your parents have been arrested, you are automatically 70% more likely to get arrested yourself. Like there's a direct correlation. Why? Because there's like that absence of that parenting that
Recording stopped.
that we all need. So it's just a never ending cycle.
Recording in progress.
And it's horrible. Like again, the only solution is to actually treat this drug addiction and help people overcome it, not put them in jail and make their lives much harder, which just makes the lives of their kids much harder, which then stifles their growth, which creates social economic gaps. And you know something, guys, that the number one cause of crime is social economic inequality. So if there is more rich people or not as many rich people, and there's too many people that don't have what they need, there's gonna be crime, and it's
Yeah.
proven.
Yeah.
And so it's all on purpose. I mean, we can change it by changing the system.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that it's going to have to change like on a larger scale. It's like I think that Portland has made some like some big strides in the right direction, but I think that like
Recording stopped.
if you still have to worry about that being a problem, going over state lines or whatever, it feel like the problem, like I hate that weed is legal here, but if I take weed over a state, then it's like now I'm a criminal, and it goes right back into that, that paranoia of like, oh, am I messing up, or am I just, somebody who is medicating? Am I, because it's like I don't smoke meth, I don't do prescription pills, I don't drink, but it's like, yeah, I do smoke weed, and like weed is something that like is helpful for me in my bipolar, but it's not seen as that in other places. And just the fact that like what can be medicine here can be grounds for a prison sentence somewhere else is just it's not fair.
Yeah,
That's
well,
Texas for you.
well, it's also
Yeah.
like, there's this huge, pretty much what you're saying. There's like this huge stigma around weed, even in most places in the U.S., where like my parents told me growing up that if you smoke weed, you're a loser, and like, you know, um, they would make fun of my friends for smoking weed, uh, and like older people from like Walla Walla, where I grew up, never really smoked weed, but I come here and it's like everybody does it. Everybody I know smokes weed, and I'm weird because I don't do it. And like everybody's grandma smokes weed here, and it's so it's very normalized here in Portland,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in like the surrounding areas, like
And it's become less of a problem, like you're not filling up places in jail where they're like, where they can't put you in there, where they're like, oh, there's already too many people. Like there's no reason to put somebody in jail for weed. Like there literally is not. Like unless they shot somebody to get that weed, like I don't care if they have weed. Like I really don't.
and I
Yeah.
don't think that would happen here in Portland.
No, no.
There's so much
Right.
weed. People actually give me weed. They're like, hey, do you want this nug? Hey, do you want this vape? And I'm like, I'll give it to a friend because I don't smoke. But
And then it's me. It's pretty sweet.
yeah,
No,
I gave you like 3 vape pens.
it was awesome. I've gone through all of them.
But yeah, and so many of my friends, have like a side gig at a dispensary, or trimming buds and stuff. It's just part of our
Great.
culture.
Yeah, it's
And
created jobs.
yeah, I don't know. I think that I actually voted against weed being legalized in Washington State when I lived in Spokane, because it actually did affect me when I was younger. I feel like in a really bad way. Like I feel like it just like stunted my mental growth. Um, not today, but when I was like a teenager, I felt like it was very bad for me. And
Yeah.
I looked into
Bad for
studies and research that if your brain isn't fully developed, it's not great for you, and it will stunt your mental growth. And I didn't want that to happen to other people, but the truth is they're going to smoke weed anyway. They're going to smoke
Yeah.
weed regardless of whether it's legal or not, like I did. But
Yeah.
at the time, I was like in my early 20s or whatever when I voted against it. But living here and seeing how things have changed, and how it's integrated in the community in a positive way, I think it should be legalized everywhere,
Yeah.
because I think that people are chiller here in Portland. Like people are, I mean, there's not as much road rage here as there is in a lot of other places I've
You ever been
been.
high hard?
Yeah. But I wish that weed affected me the way that it affected most people. I wish I could just like chill out on weed, but anyway. Um, but when it comes to addiction, like I feel like weed is something completely different. Like
I feel like we need to ban alcohol. That's the one we need to ban. That's the one that I've made all of my worst decisions on is alcohol.
I mean,
I can think of more bad decisions that were made on alcohol than were made on weed.
yeah, but I've also had some really, really fun times on.
Oh, so have I. Well, okay. Like y'all can tell me what you think about this. So I was in the car with somebody, and they, opened up about having been an addict, and I was talking about like how we kind of justify the bad times because there were good times, and she had made kind of the comparison about like and you can tell me whether or not this is true, but like women give childbirth, they almost like remember how painful it was, so that way they can do it again. And it's like I feel like it's very similar in the sense of like, oh, I almost don't remember all the bad times because I remember the good you know what I mean? Like it's almost easier to justify things with the times that it went well than it is to like really look at the times that went really bad and be like, this isn't something I can continue to have as a part of my life.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever forget the pain that occurred during childbirth. So
Yeah,
I don't agree with that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But yeah.
I had
First,
both of my kids naturally, 100% naturally. So, and then one was posterior, so it hurt like 50 times as much as normal. So, I definitely remember that pain. And
yeah,
I definitely remember the bad times on drinking, but or when I was on drinking, like on drugs, on drinking.
ever drank in your life, Des? You chosen for the podcast.
When I'm sipping on that oldie 40. Yeah, I mean, I've had some really good times, and it's just, I think that it's, it's a social thing, and I think that a lot of people can drink and just have a couple. I personally know that I need to take breaks. Like, I only drink half the year because I know that I do have an issue with self-control when it comes to drinking. So I know that I have to like limit myself. Like, I'll get to a certain point
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, now I need to stop for the rest of the year because I went a little too wild. But I don't know, like I think
Not a
that
lot of people have that self control, and because alcohol is so available, it's almost it's not just like available. It's almost like it's almost frowned upon not to do it because it's like I'll go to a party and they'll be like, "Oh, you're not drinking," and I'll get like all these weird. What do you want? You want like a water? Is that what you guys drink? Was it water? Is that? And it's like you feel like such a weirdo for not doing it that it makes sense to do it at that point. Like
yeah.
it's it's like a peer pressure.
I get what you mean, but I feel like okay, so I've been sober for almost a month now. I haven't drank because I'm doing the 75 hard challenge, and I don't really get that a lot. Like, people haven't been really asking me, and I think it's because like people know that they can't like tell me what to do or peer pressure me because
For sure.
I'll
I mean,
start
like
drinking. But I feel like
you're an exception.
I feel like I used to get that, but now people are like, "Oh, can I get you a club soda?" I'm like, "Yeah, you already know, okay?"
Yeah,
But
yeah, but not everybody has like those
but when
healthy
you're
about,
yeah,
and
and
it
also like when you're younger too, not like your age, but like, like when like people who are like 21 who aren't drinking. Like, it's definitely frowned
yeah,
upon when you go to like parties and stuff like that. They're
yeah.
like, "Wait, what are you, a weirdo or something?" But
What happened?
yeah, exactly. But I don't think that it should be criminalized. I don't think that it should be illegal
And
because
that
I
that
think
was
that
my opinion. I just
yeah,
I hate
yeah.
it. I really do, and
Yeah, I
it's
just I just think that, everybody has vices. If it's not alcohol, it's cigarettes. If it's not that, it's, sex addiction or something. Like, almost everybody has their vice,
sure.
like smoking vapes.
Okay, Des. I didn't say I was the same.
But like drugs like cocaine and meth will ruin a person's life quickly. Heroin, uh, will usually heroin addicts and their addiction and death. Like, there are just some things that I think. Um, I mean, I don't think that they should be criminalized, but at the same
I
time,
think we need to make
I'm
it
not
all
really.
or make it all illegal. Like one of the two. Like I
I
will give
think
up if everyone gives up alcohol. I
I
promise.
well, I think decriminalized is the way to go. From what I've seen,
Yeah.
it's been very new that that's happened in Portland, but I feel I don't even I haven't looked at the stats for Portland, but I feel like that's the way to go because like somebody who's caught with meth, yeah, they should get it taken away and they should have to go to like counseling or something, whatever, I don't know. Um, but
But
then
what
there's
makes
the
that
other
different?
school,
That's
but
different.
but then there's different schools of thought where it's like people should be able to do whatever the hell they want with their bodies, you know?
Yeah,
So
I
it's rough.
just I think that like I don't know. It's and I don't want to say slippery slope, but it's like you can justify meth. You know what I mean? Like you get more work done. You're more productive. You're more focused. You're like there's yeah, there are drawbacks. If you don't eat and you do a bunch of drugs, then and you don't sleep, then the sleep deprivation is what makes you crazy. It's not the drug that's making you crazy, it's the sleep deprivation. So it's so if you do meth responsibly, you can drink responsibly, then what's the issue?
Hmm. But I feel like meth is just so much worse for your body, and um,
Because
that you end up getting crazy. Sorry, you end up, I don't even know. I can't even use it different. I can't even think of a different word for it.
just
But
crazy
I feel
fun.
like most people who I know who who had a meth addiction and continued that addiction got really unhealthy, really skinny, malnourished, and then they ended up committing a crime that was awful. Like they stabbed somebody or just something wild. Like it's yeah, alcohol can be bad too, but I think it's okay in moderation. I don't think somebody can do meth in moderation, like after a long period of time. But who knows? I don't know.
Hiram, what do you think?
I think that, we've come to a point where we're understanding addiction much better and much deeper than before. And we've learned that there are some components to addictions that are really detrimental to somebody's well being. And that there are some drugs that are just more likely to cause these addictions because they have a chemical component to them. Like it's not really like a psychology thing. You know how they say weed's not addictive?
No.
Because it's not addictive like some of these other chemical drugs, like that have that chemical addiction component. Where, like, for example, heroin withdrawals could be deadly, just like alcohol withdrawals. Like you could actually just die
Hmm.
because of alcohol like withdrawals and not drinking alcohol. You have to be even careful with that sometimes. So like a lot of these drugs, like psychologically, I think we've shown can be detrimental in that way. And so like I do think it's possible that somebody could use methamphetamine like responsibly because it's honestly a very similar drug to Adderall, and a lot of people use Adderall responsibly. Uh, but I do think that regardless, there's kind of this component of so like where it's really likely that if you're the kind of person to use Adderall, then you're the kind of person to be predisposed to some kind of addiction. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like,
I started off on Adderall, and my friends were just like, "Dude, don't do meth because if you like Adderall, you're gonna love meth." Actually, I will never do meth because I will probably love it too much. And then one day that I was using all drugs, and I was just like, "Well, I mean, I'll give it a try." And yeah, it felt amazing, and I got everything done that I wanted to, and it became this justification of I'm not the problem isn't me being an addict because I'm a functioning addict. And I think that that's where a lot of people justify it is well, my bills are paid, my responsibilities are taken care of. So as long as I'm doing the things I'm supposed to, then this thing that I'm doing isn't a problem. And it's well, technically, yeah, all your stuff is done, but to say that it's not a problem in any sense is, I guess just maybe ignoring some of the problems. If it's not a big problem, it's not a problem. It's I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I have a
by
question.
go ahead.
Uh, duh, I'll raise my hand. When you were first doing meth, did you feel like gross or like weird about it? Because I know like even when I smoked weed, felt like part of me was like, maybe that's why I can't, maybe that's why I don't get the same feeling as other people do, because it's something
Mm-hmm.
that's like
You
psychological in my
associate
subconscious where I just feel kind of bad about doing it. Maybe because it's, because of the dare to keep kids off drugs thing. Just like so ingrained in me that I just can't do
it.
it.
That
It
it
worked
worked.
on me. I actually was
It
like
worked.
I got an A, or like I was like one of the best dare whatever kids. So maybe that's
Actually,
really what they like really brainwashed me. But I'm glad that it works because I don't like drugs. I don't like feeling. Um, I don't like feeling out of control of myself, like my body and my mind. But some
Yeah.
people love that. Some people love to escape, and that's
Yeah.
going back to mental health again. Um,
Yeah. Well,
which is
as I
really
guess,
at like the center of I think addiction, really.
yeah. Well, like for me, like, like when I use meth, like obviously like my brain went like, this is a bad drug, this is dirty, you shouldn't be on this. And like, but the overpowering feeling was like the benefits. All I saw was the benefits. All I saw was the good. I was just like, I have more time, because I'm not sleeping as much. So now I have more time to work on music. I have more time to get my homework done. I have more time to spend with friends. Like I have all these extra hours, and so like yes, there was the psychological part of like, yes, I was told not to do this, yes, they said that it's bad, da 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 da, insert everything. But I think that like when your brain is justifying like the good is outweighing the bad, then it's like, I don't know, it just becomes a much trickier thing.
Yeah. Did you say that, like, I thought I remember you saying that someone in your family also had like an addiction. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
messing that
yeah,
up.
yeah. No, you're totally fine. So
So,
like,
because like for me, I like my parents partied a little bit when I was pretty young, but they when I got a little even into my preteens, like they were drinking a little bit, but I wasn't really around that also. So I think, if you're around it, obviously, like
yeah.
it feels more normal too.
Well, so the addiction in regards to my family is so my mom had a daughter before me, and she had to pull the plug on her, and it devastated her. She was just didn't know how to cope with it, so she just started drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And basically out of that spiral that she was experiencing, she was promiscuous, and she ended up having me. And she will always tell me that like I'm the thing that saved her life, was finding out that she was pregnant with me. And so I understood, I guess, in a sense that like grief can make you do some weird shit, like losing people and not knowing how to cope with like that loss. Like your brain will justify just about anything. And so I never really saw her as an alcoholic. She never really drank around me. She said that like I used to wake her up when I was younger, and be like, hey, let's play or whatever, and she'd been drinking the night before. But like I never really saw her as an alcoholic. But what ended up happening was later in my life, I had lost my best friend in a car accident as she was coming back from a concert. And she was using, and was basically like in a period of my life where I was like, it was on and off using. Like I would smoke weed, but like I wasn't doing any heavier stuff. And like that summer before she'd passed away, I had tried prescription pills, and I was like, oh, these are awesome, and like that's what she had been doing, as far as my knowledge goes, because I'd done them with her. And so we started like using together. And then she was actually headed back from a concert, and the last thing I ever ended up asking her was, hey, can you bring me back some pills? And that was the last thing I said to her. And I had taken Suboxone, which is like, not what it was supposed to be used for. It's supposed to be like for heroin addicts and stuff like that, but it's like this drug that basically like you're kind of just stuck being high for like 3 days. Or at least that was my experience with it, because I had woken up, and like I'd signed up for that trip, the night before, not thinking that like I was going to lose my best friend. And I was basically just stuck like under the influence for the next like 3 days. And I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get it, get rid of that feeling. But, like I'd said about grief and justification, because she had used, and this was the first close friend that I'd ever lost. Like I used her death as justification for, this is what she would have wanted me to do. And so that then began my spiral into addiction. And yeah, and I understand that it was incredibly hard for my mom to watch that, because she understood that she knew what I was going through was grieving somebody and not knowing how to cope. But she also knew that like that was something I was just going to have to experience. That was something I was just going to have to come get through and come out on the other side of. So yeah, it's definitely addiction has been something that's like has been in my family. There's been an awareness of it. But I'm trying to take the steps now to, negate those things from my life and recognize when, am I using because I want to, or am I using because I think I need to? Could I do this sober, or do I think I need to do this high? So that's my whole spiel.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really, I think that's, really important, because a lot of people think that they are struggling in a very like isolated way, but in reality, this is kind of a reflection of what other people are going through, uniquely their own journey, right? But like, nevertheless, some very similar themes and struggles that we can learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's definitely like why I've like made it a goal and a passion of mine to talk about addiction, to talk about mental health, and to do it in the space of either music or comedy. Because like talking about addiction and talking about mental health, like people put their guard up like that, like if I go into a bar and I say I don't drink, people automatically think I'm judging them because they're drinking. And it's like, no, 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 no. Alcohol is bad for me. It could be great for you, but it's not part of my life. And I felt very isolated in that, and not wanting to do it, or watching people do it and being like, just the way that like I was intaking all of it. And it's like I've found that like by being honest about my story in any capacity, whether it's through my podcast, whether it's through my music, or it's through my comedy, is that like people have come up to me afterwards, and like I've had people be like, oh, good joke, I appreciated that. But like when people come up and they're like, yo, I've been sober for like 5 years, for meth, like, or I've been sober for 6 months or even 3 weeks, like I have so much respect for that, because I know what it's like to come from that. I know what it's like to mess up your life so bad that you think that there's no going back, and that this is it. It's over. And to have to fight through the stigma, and to have to fight through the cravings, and to have to fight through the loss of friends, the loss of family. Like I know what that's like. I know what it's like to feel isolated in that, and I don't want anybody else feeling like that.
Yeah. So what is it? So I just want to say that I also struggled with addiction, mainly alcohol, like I've mentioned. And for me, I think, like getting arrested was probably something that pushed me to change. But the biggest thing for me was I felt like I hit rock bottom in my life, and I was like, I don't have anywhere else to go. I feel like I'm at my lowest point right now. Do I want to like stay on this path of being, like a loser right now, or do I want to actually reach my goals and and reach my dreams? Like which
Mm.
I remember like having that fork in the road and being like, if I like do this one more day, I'm gonna like this is gonna be my life. Or am I going to like go back to school and stop hanging out with these people who just like use and like drink all the time? And I decided to, move, like break up with my boyfriend, stop talking to all my friends. I moved to a different city, and I changed my life. And then I had my daughter, and that was it. Like I was like, I actually stopped partying at all. I stopped going out. I stopped drinking for years.
Mhm.
And here I am. I mean, I still party a little bit, but I always
Yeah.
like rein it back in because I see myself like going back to that space where
Yeah.
I was just like I felt like a loser and I felt unhappy. Like I feel that all over again. And I think that was really good for me to feel that rock bottom because I'll never forget it. And every
Yeah.
time I'm starting to go down that path, I catch myself and I'm like, I never want to feel that way again.
Yeah.
So what was it for you where you were, because we're talking about the war on drugs, and you said that for you, like when I've asked you before, at least in your comedy, you say that it was getting arrested. Like that was
Yeah.
the first thing for you was like you
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
jail, so
Yeah. Like I
that kind
got
of stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember in the moment because, I remember the day because I remember I was coming down off of meth and I had this plan that I was like, oh, I'm just going to play this video game and then like everything's going to be fine. And then like the video game didn't work. And like for some reason, that was just the thing that I was just like, nope, whatever, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to kill myself. And I'd said that to a friend and they called the cops on me. And in the moment, like I was so mad at that person. I was like, you called the cops on me. They showed up. I got busted for meth. I was like so mad at that person. But I eventually went back to them and I was like, thank you. Like that saved my life. Like had I not gotten busted, I would have just continued doing the same thing. I would have either kept using or I would have come down one day and just been so depressed that I just ended it. So it's like it's I think the thing that like I kind of pulled from what you said is that you have to have a why. I think that that's extremely important. I think it's important in a lot of aspects of your life, but like if you don't know why you're quitting and your reason for quitting is because you got arrested or you're on probation or my girlfriend or boyfriend doesn't want me to, like that's never going to stick. That's never going to stick because the second that you get off probation, well, what's stopping you? The second that your girlfriend or boyfriend breaks up with you, what's stopping you? So it's like if you don't have a reason for you that you can take to every other instance, like that's it just doesn't stick. So yeah, that was part of it for me. And then with alcohol, like I had like a psychotic break, and I'd hurt somebody in ways that like I will never be able to properly apologize for, and I never want to do that again. Like the thing is like I always say that like the greatest trick the devil ever played is convincing us that I think I can handle it this time. And there was a period where I quit drinking, and after everything had happened, I was just like, oh, I'll never drink again. But as time progressed, I was like, well, I mean, like it would never get that crazy again, like it would never get that bad, never, and I started drinking, and obviously it never got that crazy, but it was like, why even mess with that, why even justify that? Like, yes, I could have some good times if there was a time that was so bad that like I stopped in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So really it was something, kind of similar where you were like, I don't want to be this person anymore.
God
And
no.
that's going back to people can change. Like
Yeah.
here we are, two people right here who hit rock bottom. I mean, in different ways,
Yeah.
but I feel like a completely different person than I was. Like I still have the knowledge that I had then, and I've learned so much since then, but I feel like my life has changed like more than 100%, like 500% since then.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hiram.
And
No,
I want to go back because we have a little bit of time. I want to go back to talking about the legal side, like the actual war on drugs, and what the government is doing now. Like I want to go back to that side of things too. And I know Hiram, I know you can speak on that a little bit.
I mean, the government's doing what it's always done. It's trying to get the drugs, seize them, trying to end the people using drugs by trying to eliminate drugs off the streets. But that's just making more money for the cartel members. And here's the thing: it works a lot. Like a lot of other industries, where like the more money you try to prevent something, the more likely it is to come back and bite you in the ass. Um, and so we're just in this cycle of trying to get rid of drugs and really not achieving anything but making the situation worse.
So the
So
government is spending money on like these
like drug
programs
seizures
and
at the
like
border.
and
There's
like basically police, border patrol, spending money on that, and like that type of stuff is where all the money is going.
Yeah, they're spending money on like arresting people with drug possession charges. They're spending money on, putting people into the courts, by giving them citations, and not really helping people get through the situation they're going through by offering mental health resources or resources that actually rehabilitate. So it's just a big waste of money, essentially. And it continues to happen. I mean, we are putting people in prison at a rate never seen before. There is a mass incarceration issue in the United States. We are incarcerating more people a percentage wise of our population than any other country in the world by a huge fucking margin. Like it jumps. It goes like
When Hiram
5%, like, or
cusses, you
not
know
even
it's
5%.
serious.
It's not. I don't remember the exact percentages, but it almost quadruples, almost like the military budget. You know, when you compare it to other countries, it just explodes. When you look at the United States and the amount of money and the amount of people we put in jail, and we're putting people in jail because we're pissed at them, not because they're dangerous,
Yeah, that's not
but
gonna
because
it's
we're
not gonna
mad.
help people. Like, oh, I mean, I guess it is a wake up call. It is, okay? It is a
It
wake
is a
up
wake
call.
up call in a sense, but
But a
you can have
felony is not
harder.
gonna help. Like, there you go. You have a felony now, and you're
Yeah,
still addicted to drugs, and you can't get a job or go back to school or
yeah,
work with kids or like older people, I guess, right?
yeah.
Isn't that what it is? Yeah. So,
I,
I think what do you guys? Sorry, were you gonna say something, Zane?
oh no. I don't know if it's you can't work with kids or the elderly because I'd had like a job where I was working with like just disabled folks that were just kind of older. So it's like I don't know the exact things that I'm not allowed to do because a lot of it like I had actually gotten lucky enough to get it expunged apparently, but when I came back it was still on my record, so I was very confused. But yeah, like just the fact that like they're putting all these like restrictions on you, like yes, hit a rock bottom, yes, you know, hit a point where you're like, is this really where I want to go? Like I think there needs to be some repercussions for them, but I think for them to be so extreme that they set you back further than the bad place that you were already at, like that, it's just counterproductive.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, the government is spending money on probably like tanks, on more officers and weapons and
Exactly.
everything,
Yeah.
militarizing the border patrol, the police there on the border, uh, where they could be putting money into. This is where I would like to hear what you two think. I personally think. I'll answer my own question first, like I always do. I personally think that we should put more money into mental health. That's like the obvious, ding, 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 that's it. More money, like we should be paying therapists more. We should be paying them, giving them more grants to go to school. We should have more programs. I think the money should be going into programs to get people off the streets, get them into. And also, I was talking to the person who I just got a tattoo from. She did a lot of research on mental health facilities, and she was saying that in the 70s, I think Reagan closed down all of the mental institutions and
Mm.
just threw everybody out on the streets. So I think that yes, there were a lot of problems, but instead of reforming mental institutions, they just closed all of them down. And I think that if they were like hospitals to help rehabilitate people rather than like prisons, I think that would be a huge help. And it would be a lot of it would cost a lot of it would cost our government a lot of money, but I think that that is really where a lot of
It,
the money should go because a lot of people who are homeless, are houseless, mental disabilities, and they're on drugs as well. So I think that those two go hand in hand sometimes as well. What do you guys think? Where do you think that we should be putting the money to get people off drugs and also get the make it so the cartel isn't making a bunch of money and killing a bunch of people.
yeah, Hiram.
You know, that's a very tough and intricate question, but it starts with equality in a very broad sense. Increasing access to healthcare, increasing access to education, to proper nutrition, increasing our regulation on, corporations that literally make money off of stupefying people, and, off of like getting people to be unhealthy and to hold, addictions, to be addicted to drugs and to different types of, chemicals. Like, I mean, the drug addiction problem really started with the opioid crisis, and that was like all pharmaceutical. Like, that was a pharmaceutical industry, you
Yeah.
know, just trying to make a lot of money by prescribing a fuck ton of opiates that just led to a lot of people being addicted and left hanging to do what? To get more drugs and continue to be addicted. Like,
Yeah.
and honestly, like, that continues to happen. Like, it's honestly, going to be a problem until we remove money out of the question when it's regarding things like drugs, like healthcare, like women's rights, like anything
Schools even.
that is
For-profit
should
schools
be.
even. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true, Hiram. It's not only yeah, mental health is a big issue um that can lead to drug addiction, but I think it starts even before that. Like you said, in education, nutrition. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that too.
Yeah.
Like equity, like, and I just want to say, like, a lot of people think that there's a lot of very strong liberals who just want everything to be easy and that they just assume that other people don't struggle. But the thing is, we all struggle. It's just that the people that struggle aren't always aware of the fact that they're struggling, because that's how they get you. They get you by convincing you that you're not struggling. They get you by convincing you that there's this somehow reachable dream that you can achieve. But if honestly you're not that rich person, if you're not Jeff Bezos, if you're not one of the people that already has generational wealth, where you're fucked, and the only way you're going to build wealth in your lifetime is never, because the system is rigged against you. Like, it's rigged to make you believe that you are in the best position when at the same time you're not. You know what I mean? And so it's just really one of those things. It's just it's infuriating because it's so effective now. They do it through social media, they do it through ads, TV, like everywhere. Everything in life almost that we do and we participate in is just another way to make money off of us, and it's never not in the interest of our betterment. Look, I'm not painting this really
Everybody
morbid
just get rid of
image.
all of your social media.
Yeah.
Delete Facebook. and
Yeah. While
I
you're
think
watching.
just make sure that you continue watching our show somewhere. Like, just go on Twitch. Get rid
Yeah.
of
like I
Instagram.
said, I
I
think
mean,
the
I'll still be
remedy
posting on there, but but everybody else should. No, but
I think that
I agree with you there too. Like, um, the reason it's free is because they want to sell us stuff, and you
and
know,
look, the remedy is simple. It's being aware of that. And honestly, if you could be self-aware or aware enough if that's how it works and that's where the money goes, if you follow the money, that's where it's going to lead you. You can be comfortable now, being your own person, because you can question these things because you're aware of how they work. And that's the whole thing about being educated, right? Like, it's not even about like knowing math or knowing these really complicated things. It's really simple. It's as simple as, you know, look at how it works, look at how it affects you, uh, and then make decisions based off of the information that you learn. It's I don't know. It's the most basic thing that people can do to make that better today, right?
it
You
starts
know,
at education. I think like some people
yeah,
are born with a disadvantage, and I'm not just talking about, um, you know, being black or brown, but some people are born with certain diseases that make it so they can't, or so they're not, so they don't have equity, or they have like something going on mentally. um, but I think, but it really does start with education, in my opinion. Like, the U.S. in general has a horrible education system, and I think that that's where we need to start. And I think for a lot of us older generations, education is still possible, but um, yeah, we need to definitely put more money into education and start paying our teachers better, so they actually, I mean, they do give a fuck, but so they get more of a fuck,
Zane,
I guess. What do you think,
you were
Zane?
gonna
Yeah.
say something?
No.
He's frozen in an O face.
Oh no.
Can you
Well,
still hear us, Zane? I want to hear what he
so-
has to say as, for his
yeah, of course. Do you want to start summarizing after this?
yeah, I think we kind of did a
Or taking some
little bit. I'm just going to stop his video. Oh, there he is. He's back. Okay.
and get some comments read too.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a whole lot of comments. How do I get rid of this one?
Okay, sorry, I'm back.
Okay.
Hello.
Hang on. I think there's 2 pictures up for you. Let me see.
Handsome.
Can you see it?
No, I just wish I could.
Oh, there we go.
2
Okay,
pictures of
thanks.
me. That sounds amazing.
Well, the other one was stuck in an O face. You're like this.
Oh, I'm flattering, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of the stuff that you said. I think, money needs to go into mental health. But yeah, I think that a lot of it is we're trying to prevent it, but we're not trying to prevent it at the right place. Like we're trying to prevent it by being like, don't do drugs when, like instead it needs to start, with like the equality. Like if like I always hate when people are just like, oh, homeless people need to quit doing drugs. It's just like, dude, their life sucks. Like you're literally taking the one form of like, like euphoria or just joy out of their life and they have nothing else to fall back on. Like you can't just you like the thing that I've always known to be true about addiction is that like you have to replace something with something. You can't just like quit and be like, okay, I'm going to quit drinking and now I'm just going to sit and stare at a wall. You know what I mean? Like unless you pick up crocheting or watching movies or working out, exercise. I know. I'll work on it.
I
But
was talking about
I think
myself. That's what I use.
no,
But yes,
no,
I'm
I know,
judging you too. You need to come and work out
I
with me.
yeah, no, and you should be judging me.
Okay, well
But
now
no,
that
I
I
think
know that I have permission, I'm
yeah,
gonna be judging you.
free reign, do it. But no, I think that like that we need to just like I guess have compassion for like the people that like we're taking these things away from, and set them up for success. Like okay, like if you're going to like try to take drugs out of the equation, like what are you going to do to try to supplement like this person's mental health? Like if they're using, it might be trauma related. If it's trauma related, are you going to help them deal with the trauma or just leave them to deal with the trauma with now no buffer against all those really difficult feelings?
Yeah, I mean
So
it is a lot of work to get a single person sober. It's a lot of work, especially
yeah,
if there's a come down phase, or what is it called?
yeah,
Yeah, I'll say come down phase, because you might have to be in a methadone clinic, so you could slowly like wean off of the drug, or alcohol also. Like sometimes for some people, just quitting cold turkey is not possible. Like you'll die. So
yeah.
there's that, and like getting the help and getting medical help for that, and also like go. So I got in trouble a few times for drinking underage. So I actually asked my mom to go to like an inpatient because I did it myself. Like I wasn't even like
Ugh.
ordered to. I was in there for 3 months. Not a lot of people know about this, but it was mainly like it was kind of like a summer camp, but it was like counseling and learning about addiction. And everybody else in there, I swear, was in there for meth or heroin or crack, and
Ugh.
they're kids. And
Yeah,
this is in Spokane, and I was in there for alcohol, and they were like, they would like judge me. They're like, oh, you're only in here for alcohol, and
yeah.
you weren't even court ordered to be in here. And I'm like, no, I just really want to be a better person, and I want to change. But that was expensive. Like getting one single person
Oh, for
out of
sure.
addiction, whatever that may be, is
Yeah.
super expensive. But it's
Well,
also super
yeah.
expensive to arrest a single person and keep them in jail. So
Yeah, it's also
think
expensive to
about
keep
that.
using. So there's going to be money spent somewhere. So I think that, the better places that we can spend it. Because and that's like a thing, that's kind of why I started, pursuing, going into psychology and stuff like that, is because like, let's say, and I may have to make this call tomorrow, like, hey, I need mental health help, I'm struggling. They'll say, okay, cool. So in 6 months, we'll have an intake. And I'm like, in 6 months? Like 6 months? Like, and that's for me, you know what
That's
I
like
mean? And like
that's for inpatient.
no, that's for like getting the first time that like I called
Like
to
it's
get
just like a
mental health
regular
help,
therapist.
to get a
Okay.
therapist, it took me, they told me it would take me 3 to 6 months to be able to do intake. So I'm not even getting my medication at that point. They're just going to talk to me to decide whether or not I even need it,
That's
you know?
happening
So it's
now?
like it's I mean, I've been putting it off, but it's
Oh, okay.
about to.
Okay.
I'm dreading it because I know that that's what's going to
Okay.
happen.
I'm just gonna say
And
that I think that everybody should have a therapist, whether it's you talk to them once a month just to talk about things. Like there should not
for
be
sure.
stigma surrounding that. Also, check out Zane's show, The Smoke Break. He talks about mental health and addiction. It's a great show. I've been on it a couple times, which makes it even
Sure.
better.
Makes it even better. Only listen to those episodes.
No, listen to all of them. There's a lot. But I went on a little tangent there. What was I talking about?
It's just in regards to like therapy and mental health help,
Oh
and
yes,
you know just how
everybody.
it's
Yes, yes. Sorry, everybody.
yeah, but
Everybody should have a therapist, especially if you're trying to stop drinking or doing drugs or something. I think that
no,
is key because there's always like there's always a why for doing drugs, whether
yeah,
that's
yeah,
um to bottle something up or to
yeah.
just numb out or whatever.
Well,
Just
I think that
it's
if there's a why to do the drugs, you have to find a why not to do the drugs. Like you
mhm,
have to counteract that, like the justification, like I'm doing this because this. It's like you have to get to a point where you're like, I'm not doing this because of this.
mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah. Go
But
ahead.
yeah, so I think a therapist is imperative for everybody, especially for somebody who's in active addiction or trying to who's in recovery. Like it just should be a
Yeah,
lifelong thing, in my opinion. And I put off doing that for so long because I was raised to in my family,
go
it's
through it.
a weakness. Yeah, and yeah, just to be tough and everything. But and so I got like acupuncture. I got massage. I got um like all these different I got reading tarot readings and everything, and then finally I was like, all right, now I'm ready for therapy. Like I did all that, and then I finally, it's not like I was never going to do it, but for some reason in my head I had to do everything else and then that. But I did
Yeah,
it already, and then as soon as I was ready, I got a therapist for an appointment the next week, and this therapist is like perfect. Like she's part of the queer community, and she is for like she's an activist and all this stuff. So
yeah.
I just got really lucky. I was like, this is my time to start, and then I found
Oh,
her.
for sure.
But I've heard
No,
horror
that's
stories
super lucky.
of people having to
Yeah,
wait like 6 months or something. So,
yeah,
but if somebody needs a therapist, let me know and I'll hook you up with
yeah.
mine.
Yeah. Des will just tell you what their therapist told them, and you can
No,
just
I'll
bootleg
I'll
therapist.
I'll give you a link to my therapist because I think they have other therapists available too. But yeah, I think that's super important. Is that like the main thing that you would suggest for
Yeah,
for us
I'm
to put money
terrible with
into?
money. I'm terrible with money, so I couldn't tell you where it would be better spent. I know what I'm doing in my own life to try to combat addiction and stuff like that, whether it's within myself or whether it's within others, you know. But as far as like where to put money, couldn't tell you where to do it. I don't even I towards rent, I guess.
Well, if you have
That's
any
that
extra,
it,
I always know what to do with
yeah.
it. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
if anybody has
Donate to
any,
Des.
I know exactly what to do with it. Okay.
But yeah, as far as financially, I couldn't give you a straight answer. I think both of you guys gave some really great answers for that.
Okay. The money definitely shouldn't be going to tanks for the border. That's for sure. Like
No,
that's the last thing
no.
that we need for
Uh
to keep out immigrants anyway. Like
yeah,
we're all nobody's most people who are here, like their families from somewhere else. Like fuck the
yeah.
borders.
Also,
Anyway,
they don't have
that's
tanks. There's not tanks crossing the border. There's people crossing the border.
But anyway, we actually covered a lot of this. We have a border wall episode where I talked to Hiram about his trip over the border wall. Where
No,
he,
I think I listened to it.
yeah. So Hiram, you have anything else? You want to sum everything up? Are you still there?
Yes, of course I'm still here. I've been listening to you guys.
Sweet
You guys have
sweet
a lot to
nothings.
share. Uh,
We can between the three of us, we could probably talk all night. But
yeah, honestly,
let's sum this
I,
up with
I'm
some sweet nothings. Let's put everything into a little box and make it pretty.
a little biased. Yeah, so, well, we know that the war on drugs is fueled by money, and that's money specifically to try to get people who are addicted, which is a disease, to go to jail. But that doesn't work because it's a disease. It needs treatment and it needs rehabilitation. But the reason we don't treat it that way is because there's a lot of money behind putting people in jail. There's a lot of money behind, keeping these industries and these like military operations alive, like the DEA, keeping them funded, keeping Border Patrol funded. Like they have an interest. And so, like, they'll tell you they're like, we're stopping all the drugs, but they're not really stopping any of the drugs. They're just trying to keep their jobs, trying to keep making money. It's all about money. And what I'm saying is, things like mental health, things that are an absolutely unalienable human right, shouldn't be subject to money because then they're just subject to inequality. And guess what? In America, it happens to be that we have a racial disparity. So the people that get hurt in America by far are the people of color, people who are, black and brown,
People like us.
are getting targeted. Yes, people like us are getting targeted. And again, we're getting targeted for being part of a system that's supposed to just create more people like us. It's like it's all wrong. It's all wrong, and we need to change it soon. When we're seeing individual instances of this happening to millions of people, right? And you guys get to be those examples, those shining examples that we put into the limelight, that create awareness, to create change. And so through your work, you guys are doing a really wonderful job putting that out there. So I really appreciate your input. I mean, hopefully we can continue to fight for more equality, less money on the war on drugs, a bigger focus on rehabilitation, and an even bigger focus on getting away from money when it comes to human rights and moving towards a more social communal responsibility.
Yeah, I mean,
Beautiful.
I think we're all doing our part, with our activism and just speaking on this subject and bringing awareness to it, and hopefully, like, you know, figuring out the issues and bringing about change in small ways wherever we can. Like that's the
Oh
best that we can
yeah,
do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
So thank you guys. I
Yeah,
really
thank you
appreciate
so
all of
much.
you.
Yeah.
Keep
This has been
yourselves
another
educated.
episode of Based with Des and Hiram. I'm Carissa Des.
And I'm Hiram, and we have
Zane
special
Thomas over
guest.
here. Check out
Yeah,
Pew pew.
the smoke break.
Yes, please
check
do.
them
Thank you
out.
guys so
When
much for having me.
that's
I had a blast.
every Saturday. The smoke break.
It's
Come on,
yeah,
give your shout
episodes
outs.
drop every
You know
Sunday.
the deal. You know the deal.
I know the deal. So yeah, check out the smoke break. We release episodes every Sunday at 10 o'clock. So 10 o'clock every Saturday, or excuse me, 10 o'clock every Sunday, there will be a new episode of the smoke break. It's a mental health podcast with myself, my co-host Amanda Lynn Deal, and Malik Ray Sean. We talk with comedians and all sorts of people. So yeah, it's not, none of us are mental health professionals, but I think that having a dialogue between people who aren't professionals is just as valuable as as any conversation. So yeah, thank you guys so much for
And
having me, and I had a blast.
and you may soon be a mental health professional because you
But yeah, if I
do you
follow
want to
through.
announce? I don't know if you want to announce anything yet. I don't like to
Yeah,
announce
yeah,
things
yeah,
until
no,
I'm like doing it, but
yeah.
yes,
Well,
mental health.
I haven't dropped it on social media, but yeah,
Okay, okay.
I signed up within the last week. So I'm going to be starting school on my birthday. So January 9th would be when I start. So I was like, you know
Nice.
what? There's sometimes the days just line up, and it's like, yeah, it's probably in the cards.
Yeah,
So
I think
hopefully I
that
can be out there fighting.
yeah, and I think that people like you who have been in active addiction and are, have been in recovery for so long, I think you obviously have tools that you know, hopefully you can help others with. So appreciate you for
absolutely.
being out there. Also, check out our music show, Off the Cuff, with Tez and Zane. Like, we have so many shows, but just follow us on social media and you will find out all about them. Peace.
Perfect. Awesome.
Guys.
Pew pew.
All right, guys.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good one.
I'm
Be
on 2
safe.
hours of
Later.
sleep, so I got to go.
Later.
Oops.